What would happen if Pakistan joins NATO? Overview. Pakistan, officially the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, is a country in South Asia. It is the fifth most populous country, with a population of over 241.5 million, having the second largest Muslim population as of 2023. Islamabad is the nation's capital, while Karachi is its largest city and financial center. If Pakistan were to join NATO, it would have significant geopolitical, military, and strategic consequences for South Asia, NATO, and global security. Here's what could happen. First, geopolitical shifts in South Asia, tensions with China. Pakistan has close ties with China, especially through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. Joining NATO could strain this relationship, potentially affecting economic and military cooperation. India's response. India might view Pakistan's NATO membership as a threat, possibly strengthening its ties with Russia or forming closer alliances with Western powers like the US outside NATO. This could escalate regional tensions. Impact on Afghanistan. Pakistan's NATO membership could influence Afghanistan's stability, as NATO had a long presence there. Pakistan might gain more leverage over security decisions in the region. Second, military and strategic consequences. Strengthening NATO's presence in Asia. Pakistan's location is strategically important, giving NATO access to the Arabian Sea and proximity to China, Iran, and India. Military upgrades. Pakistan would likely receive advanced military equipment, training, and intelligence sharing from NATO, improving its defense capabilities. Conflict with Russia. Russia opposes NATO expansion. Pakistan joining NATO could strain its ties with Russia, especially given Russia's alliances with India and China. Third, internal political and economic effects. Domestic opposition. Pakistan's political and military establishment has traditionally balanced relations between the West, China, and the Muslim world. A NATO alliance might face internal resistance, economic benefits and sanctions risks. Pakistan could receive economic and military aid, but it could also face sanctions from China or Russia for siding with NATO. Fourth, NATO's perspective. Strategic advantage. NATO would gain influence in South Asia, enhancing its position in countering China's rise. Complications in decision-making. Pakistan has historically had a complex foreign policy, sometimes conflicting with Western interests. Integrating Pakistan into NATO could complicate alliance strategies. In conclusion, Pakistan joining NATO would be a highly complex move, affecting regional dynamics, global geopolitics, and Pakistan's own internal stability. It's unlikely in the near future due to Pakistan's strategic ties with China and Russia, as well as NATO's historical focus on Europe and North America. However, if it ever happened, it would reshape global alliances very significantly. Now here's why Russia opposes NATO expansion: because it sees the alliance as a direct threat to its security, influence, and geopolitical interests. Here are the key reasons. Mainly, security concerns. Fear of encirclement. Russia believes NATO's expansion brings Western military power closer to its borders, reducing its strategic depth and increasing vulnerability. Missile defense and military bases. NATO has deployed missile defense systems and military bases in Eastern Europe, which Russia sees as a threat to its nuclear deterrence capabilities. Loss of a buffer zone. During the Cold War, Russia controlled a sphere of influence through the Warsaw Pact. As former Soviet states like Poland, the Baltic countries, and Ukraine moved toward NATO, Russia lost its buffer zone against potential Western military actions. Second, historical distrust. Broken promises. Russia claims that after the Cold War, Western leaders assured Soviet officials that NATO would not expand eastward. Although no formal treaty was signed, Russia sees NATO's growth as a betrayal. Cold War legacy. Russia still views NATO as a Cold War-era adversary designed to counter Soviet influence. This perception fuels hostility toward its expansion. Third, geopolitical and power struggles. Maintaining influence in former Soviet states. Russia wants to keep former Soviet republics, for example, Ukraine, Georgia, Belarus, under its sphere of influence. NATO expansion threatens this dominance. Challenge to Russian hegemony. A stronger NATO reduces Russia's ability to project power in Europe and limits its diplomatic leverage. Fourth, the Ukraine factor. Preventing Ukraine's NATO membership. Russia sees Ukraine's NATO ambitions as a red line. It invaded Crimea in 2014 and launched the 2022 war largely to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. Fear of NATO troops on its borders. If Ukraine were to join NATO, Russia would have a NATO-allied military directly on its southwestern border, increasing its perceived insecurity. Fifth, domestic and political factors. Nationalism and political legitimacy. Russian leaders, especially Vladimir Putin, use NATO opposition to rally nationalist sentiment and justify military actions. Control over opposition. By portraying NATO as an enemy, Russia can suppress internal dissent and frame opposition groups as Western puppets. In conclusion, Russia's opposition to NATO expansion is driven by historical grievances, security concerns, and the desire to maintain regional influence. The more NATO expands, the more Russia feels threatened, leading to tensions, conflicts, and geopolitical rivalries. If you like videos like these, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Comment down below if you have any geographical questions.